I see we learned absolutely nothing from the first post that I put on Instagram. Hey y'all, welcome back to Bookishrealm. Welcome if you're new here. I am Ashley. We do a little bit of everything here. Reaction videos, vlogs sometimes, depending upon how I'm feeling, wrap-ups, lots of discussions. So if you're new here, jump in. I hope you enjoy. If you're new and you like what you're seeing, make sure you click the subscribe button, hit that like button, press the bell for notifications. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, all the links will be down in the description box below. It's a joyride. It's a joyride. Okay, so as you can see, also, if you're new here, you know, I'm super extra. I'm extra when I want to be extra. So, as y'all know, as you can see from the title of this video, I am doing something similar to what I did last week or the week before. I don't know. Time is a funny thing. Where I am going to be reacting to responses that you gave to me via Instagram questions. This time, I'm going to be reacting to the worst books you have ever read. I got a lot more responses for this one. I think people felt the need to really express themselves with this one, which is perfectly fine. I understand it. I get it 100%. Okay, but before we jump into that, I would like to thank today's sponsor of the video, and it is Book of the Month. If you didn't know anything about Book of the Month, one thing that I love to highlight is their mission. So their mission is to help readers discover new books that they'll love and to promote the work of emerging authors. One of the things that I really enjoy that falls under this mission is the fact that Book of the Month is very particular about how they curate their titles. So y'all know I'm a librarian. I feel like I say that like all the time. I'm a librarian. I'm a librarian. I'm a librarian. As a librarian, I say that all the time. And one of the biggest parts of being a librarian is curation. And it's something that we talk about a lot as a community, is curating our collections. Whether you use the word curate or not, you're curating your collection. You're deciding what should and should not get added to your collection. And with so many different books coming out on the market at all times, Book of the Month really makes it easy and accessible for people to discover a new book that they're really going to enjoy and love. So if you didn't know, on the back end, they actually have an editorial team that sifts through hundreds of titles every single month. And as someone who does collection curation, working in collection development, that is a big task. And from those hundreds of titles, they pick 5 to 7 for you to choose from. And of course, every title is amazing, but they have so many different options for so many different reading tastes. You really genuinely just can't go wrong. And one of the other things that comes with this curation is discoverability. So we're always looking for new things to check out, to read, because sometimes it's easy to end up in like this bubble where you see the same things over and over again. But Book of the Month kind of changes all of that, because it gives readers the opportunity to discover new books that you probably may not have heard of. And it gives you the opportunity to kind of step outside of genres that you're used to reading. So maybe if you like mysteries and thrillers, you may opt to find a historical fiction or contemporary romance that you find interesting. Something cool that Book of the Month just ended up doing, which y'all know me, I'm a single parent, okay? I work full time. I do content creation on the side. So I get a lot of my reading done via audiobook. Audiobooks are my bread and butter when it comes to. In addition to the hardcovers that Book of the Month has every single month, they've now launched an audiobook selection to match the hardcovers that they've given you options for, that you can now download and listen to right in their app. So you get to choose either hardcover or you get to choose an audiobook, which I think that's super accessible as well. So let's not even talk about the fact that, you know, this is just 2 new formats. This creates a whole different level of accessibility that I have not seen with any other company. So for the month of August, I'm going to show you 2 of the books that I selected. Each month your books are going to come in this blue Book of the Month box. So the first one that I ended up going with was Shark Heart, A Love Story. Now I'm not going to lie to you, when I first saw this one, it was the cover that kind of just drew me in. But then I read the synopsis and I'm very curious about what this is and how the story is going to play out. It is an intergenerational story that focuses on several different things, including motherhood, letting go, transformation, metamorphosis, and it focuses on a husband and wife duo. It starts with them where they are married and then they get the news that the husband is going to slowly transform into a great white shark. I have no idea where the author would possibly go with this, but there's so many interesting themes that I think are going to align with the idea of him turning into a great white shark, where he's able to retain somewhat of his consciousness, but then you have that shark instinct, that aggressive nature coming forward. And there's so many things that I'm excited for when it comes to this book. Next one that I ended up choosing was no shocker to me. This is A Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. A lot of people were anticipating this. I was anticipating this. I have read every book that Elizabeth Acevedo has ever written. This is her first adult title, and this is another familial based story that follows a Dominican family, and it starts with one particular sister who is able to pretty much tell when someone is going to die, and she decides to have a living wake. And so everyone's assuming that maybe she's predicted her own death, or she's foreseen her own death. And so we get to follow this entire family of sisters and cousins and hear things from their voices and perspectives. And I love a good familial story. I love intergenerational stories. I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Acevedo, so I'm excited to see where she's going to take the story. So if you're interested in all of those things and those amazing titles, there's other titles that you should definitely check out. I definitely recommend going to bookofthemonth.com. For a limited time, you can get your first book for $9.99 by using the code VACAY. Thank you once again to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. Okay, y'all, so let's dive into y'all's random, I don't even know. Some of these are let's put it this way, they're not random. I'm not going to say that they're random, because they're not random. Some of these books I have never heard of, and from y'all's reactions, I'm kind of happy that I've never heard of them. Not gonna lie. Some of these I definitely have heard of, and some of these are gonna make some people mad. All I can say is that I am happy that none of my favorites ended up on this list. I am genuinely happy that none of mine ended up on this list. So let's go ahead and jump in. Actually, one of mine did. I just looked at the daggone list. Okay. Dang it, y'all. One of them did. Okay, so just like I did this last video, I am not going to reveal anyone's name. I'll just put the book title, of course, cover on the page, and I'll probably do anywhere in between. I'll probably do 8 to 10 of these because there was a lot more responses than the previous one. Y'all were just, some of y'all was just very, very angry that day. I don't know whether I touched some people's nerves that day, but some of these responses are hilarious. So we're just gonna cover someone in general because she seems to be kind of like a common denominator against all of you. Like, it's just like multiple people have said this person and multiple of her books. So let's welcome to the stage, Miss Colleen Hoover. Now, I know y'all know that I do not have a personal vendetta against Miss Hoover. I do not have a personal vendetta against Miss Hoover. However, I am not interested in reading any of her books based on the synopsis. So one of the big ones that I got where people said it was their least favorite book was definitely Verity. I do not know anything about this book. I know that it is often sold as like a romance thriller or whatever have you, but just because it has her name on it, I'm already not inclined to read it. But apparently she did something to y'all in that book, because a bunch of y'all was like, Verity. I said, oh, usually Miss Hoover is for the masses, but the masses of y'all said Miss Hoover is not for me. She is not for me. And that's fine, because she's not for me either. So it's not that I would ever pick up Verity. I have no interest in Verity, but apparently y'all had no interest and you didn't like it either. The next one that I have on here is very, I don't know if it's like surprising, because I don't think I've ever read, have I read anything by her? I haven't read anything by this author. I was surprised to see her on this list. From This Day by Nora Roberts. I know quite a few people who are like Nora Roberts fans, very much so, enjoy her, appreciate her. She's done a lot of great work in terms of like advocacy for libraries. It doesn't mean that she can't write a book that you can't enjoy, but I've only heard very positive things about her. So this was very interesting to me. But from the reviews that I have seen, the hero and the heroine are not likable characters. words. Now this is just from my observations from what I've seen in reviews. Y'all, I love a good story with unlikable characters where you can't root for nobody. I have noticed that about me, and so maybe it's because the messy side of me really be feeling that. And so, and you saying that you don't like this, my interest is low-key maybe just a little peak, just a little teeth. Now this one, child, me and you finna beef over this one, okay? But this is a very polarizing book, and I understand why, to a degree, why people don't like it. So it's Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. When I read this one, I gave it 4 stars. I believe I read it in the beginning of, maybe I read it in the beginning of 2022. It had to be at the beginning of 2022. It is a horror. It's a very, very long one. And I think that people often dislike this book because of how it's paced, and also because it feels like 2 different books meshed into one. And a lot of people just don't really care for that. I really did enjoy some aspects of kind of like the religious commentary that happens in there. I enjoyed the fact that the book was on the longer end, and that it felt like it was 2 different narratives going on. I enjoyed it, but y'all, people didn't like that. When I reviewed that book, I was like, I think I'm just like one of the outliers. So I will admit, the masses hate this book, but I was one of the ones that was like, this is not that bad though. I see where Stephen Chbosky was going with this. I was feeling this a little bit. It worked for me. Apparently it didn't work for you, and that's okay. But goodness gracious, the worst book you ever read though? You're making me question myself. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Ooh, child, yes. Okay, so this next one, we're gonna talk about these older white men that love to write books and use the N-word. Don't worry, I feel like I have a video coming on this soon, because I have something to say about Grisham and A Time to Kill and his use of the N-word. But let's talk about It by Mr. King. Now this is so interesting. I've never read It. In fact, I think I've only read 1 Stephen King book, and that was Carrie. I've read that twice. But since I have had no direct interest in like wanting to read through Stephen King's backlist, I've never, I'm not a Stephen King stan. My grandmother was, which I find very interesting considering, whatever. But she was. She always talked about Stephen King. Fan of Stephen King. Not me, not so much. But I've heard things about It. Now, I have seen both movie adaptations, the old school one, and then the new one, because don't ask me why, like most of us, I watched It when I was probably way too dang on young to be watching It. But Mr. King, some tea on Mr. King. I heard the N-word was used all up and down like filth in that book. And it was some questionable scenes with some minors in that book. Y'all asked me like how you process reading that book. How did you get past those scenes? How did Mr. King in fact explain his way out of that one? I just want to know. That's the only question I got. How did he explain his way out of that? So I feel you on that. I personally have no interest in reading that. Yeah, none. I'm good. I'm fine. This has got to be kind of universal too. Well, it's really not universal, and I have a long, interesting, also another discussion video in mind about, although I've already done one, a long, interesting discussion about where this series works and in what sub-communities of our larger community does the series work in. And I'm talking about Twilight. So if y'all didn't know, I got very connected with some people in the community when Bethany hosted, Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany, when she hosted this Twilight read-along to talk about the books and also dissect Midnight Sun, because this was around the time that Midnight Sun was coming out. Oh my gosh, I wanted to gouge my eyeballs out with spoons. It was so dreadfully awful. I hated it. There was a couple of you who put Twilight, somebody put Midnight Sun. The whole series is trash. If it's your favorite, I'm sorry. It's filth. I hate it. I read all 5 books and I hated it. And it's so interesting because when I was in high school, I read them as they were coming out. And I was like, oh, this is good. This is good. I get this. I'm enjoying it. This is a vibe. And then at my big old age now, I'm like, what the world? The lack of consent, the lack of boundaries, the inappropriate characterization of people of color, the way that Native American characters are treated in this. Just stop. Not for me, and apparently not for y'all. I respect it. I get it. I get it. Oh, let's put this one on here because I haven't talked about this book, and I don't even think I'm still going to talk about this book, but I also didn't really care for this book, and I think all that can be said about this book has been said, and it is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Y'all ate this book up. Y'all are still eating this book up. Everybody and their mama is loving Fourth Wing. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I'm in agreement here. Fourth Wing is a very divisive book. I think that it has certain appeal. I thought it was too long. It was dry. It was crunchy. It was like eating burnt toast and not being given water. It was torture. The only thing that really saved that book probably was the ending. But other than that, I was kind of like, none of this makes sense. Suspending my disbelief was not in my favor in reading this book. I don't, listen, it's fine if you enjoy the book. I originally had bumped it up to 3, and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, now I'm finna drop this shit back down to 2.5 because I wasn't a huge fan of it. I've read books with dragons before, and so while the dragon part of it was appealing for me, there wasn't enough dragons. It was too much. Oh my God, he's so hot. Like, oh my God, he's just so amazingly hot and I just want to screw him. Girl, what? So it was a little too much of that. It wasn't a vibe for me. It started off as a vibe and then there was no vibes to be had after that. So there I was with Fourth Wing. And so I'm glad somebody said it. Oh, here goes a fun one. Anything by Tessa Bailey. You know, I don't know if I've read Tessa Bailey. I can't remember. If I don't feel like I have. At one point I was interested, and I know that BookTok, which is going crazy over Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey's just done a couple of things that she's not for me. She's not for me. The romance girlies eat her up. She's not for me. I'm right there with the person who made this comment. Tessa Bailey is Tessa Bailey, and Tessa Bailey's gonna keep on Tessa Baileying. And so I just don't. There's just been some things. And so I also just have no interest. It's perfectly fine. Just not my thing. It's all right. If you like Tessa Bailey, I'm not here to knock you. Do what you want. She's just not for me. And the last one is one that I'm shocked about. I did not know this, but I've also never read the book. So someone commented and said, the 5 love languages, the homophobia and victim blaming were rampant. I didn't know. Well, I haven't read the 5 love languages. You know, everybody talks about, you know, your love language, whether it's gifts or is it like touch or quality time or, you know, stuff like that. And so that's my kind of understanding of 5 love languages. That's pretty much all that I know. Word of mouth type of stuff. Never really done any research on the book. Never picked up the book. But apparently there's some homophobia, victim blaming. And that, ooh, yikes, child. Oh, I did not. Wow. Can we just write a book about how we love and leave people alone? Like, that one actually is probably the biggest shocker to me because I didn't know that was a thing. Oh wow. Goodness gracious. Okay, so probably won't be picking that one up. I do like the idea of the concept of the love languages. It does make sense, but I don't like that part. That's not for me. All right, y'all, let me know down in the description box below what is the worst book that you've ever read. As always, like I said at the beginning, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for the bella. You see? Twi freaking light. Not the bella. Hit the bell. The bell. We're not thinking about Bella. We're not going to talk about Bella. We don't give a about Bella. But hit the bell. B-E-L-L. Bell for notification. If you're looking to follow me on social media, support the channel, all the links will be down in the description box below, and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye. I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down.